Hello my friends, it is your brother Hampton from Hybrid Calisthenics. Welcome back to another episode of Unsponsored Reviews. The purpose of the series, if you haven't heard, is to give an honest, unbiased opinion, my opinion, on products that you may like or you may have seen. Usually fitness or health related, but I'm thinking of branching out. Totally not because I've been seeing wacky ads and want to try the products on camera. Looking at you, pillows. Today I want to talk about a product that many of you may not have heard about, and that is the Isochain. It's this thing. It basically works as a point of vertical resistance. So just about any exercise you can do with a barbell, you can do with this. Now I'm going to try to keep this review somewhat short, but a few things before we go further. Firstly, what are isometrics? Isometric just means same length. In terms of exercise, this refers to the contraction of our muscle fibers. A famous example of an isometric exercise would be a wall sit or a handstand. Basically anything where your body doesn't move. My favorite one is holding a cup of coffee while I film. I drink in between takes. Now, I am a geek about isometrics, a super fan. I love them. And just to quickly answer some common questions, yes, you can get very, very strong with isometrics. And yes, you can build muscle with isometrics, a lot of muscle if you know what you're doing. And yes, isometrics can assist with fat loss. Now, this might seem surprising to some of you, especially those of you who have done some research on the topic, but there are some studies that can back this. I'll link them down below so you can check them out. Truth is, isometrics have actually been studied out the yin-yang. We just don't hear about them that much. And on that topic, there's a book that you can get with the Isochain, and I'd like to share something from it regarding what may have been one of the first ever studies done on isometrics.
Long ago, in a land far, far away. By long ago, I mean about 100 years, and by far, far away, I mean Massachusetts. The First World War had ended, but devastated the nation's soldiers. Many lied wounded in hospital beds, wasting away, losing strength and muscle day by day. With another war looming just around the corner, researchers scurried to understand the effects of muscle atrophy. And so they turned to frogs. As in they studied them, they didn't actually become frogs. I mean, maybe they did. If they did, I didn't read about it. Anyway, this is a serious topic, let's get back to it. To better understand the effects of muscle atrophy, researchers bound just one leg of each frog, effectively rendering it immobile, similar to a broken leg on a soldier. When they returned a few weeks later, they expected to find the bound leg much more weak and much smaller, but instead they found the opposite. See, the frogs didn't understand that their legs had been bound, so they still tried to hop around normally. Their bound legs strained against these splints, and as a result they got much stronger. So much stronger that when they were unbound, these frogs actually jumped diagonally because one leg was much stronger than the other. Because the researchers were trying to understand muscle atrophy, they declared this experiment a failure. But unknowingly, they had discovered the tremendous power of isometrics.
Anyway, that was just me trying to paraphrase the first chapter in this book. The author really does a lot better explaining it and telling the story. I do recommend the book. I'll link it down below. Now from this point on, I'm going to discuss both the Isochain and the theory behind training isometrics, just because the two are so connected and I want this to make sense. The device itself is actually quite simple. There's a bar, a chain, a spring, and a base plate. Now on the bar, there's an interface and a screen that measures and shows your force output on the bar. I'll show more on that in just a moment. But in this video, I'm going to try to focus more on the device, the Isochain, and this is because while I am a huge fan of isometric exercise, I think the science and research behind them is really quite fascinating and deserve their own video, or videos. But I can tell you right now that I really like the Isochain. Really, that's the summary. I like the product, I like the author who wrote the book about it, I like the company that makes it. This is one of my favorite fitness products I've ever bought. That's a summary, and remember, this is unsponsored. Now, the product itself is actually quite young. I think it's only been around a couple of years. I followed it pretty much since they announced it and they put it to market. And it's created some super fans. Namely, probably most notably, my buddy Chrys Johnson at No Limit Fitness created an entire YouTube channel dedicated to talking about it. So he's a personal trainer who's trained himself and his clients with it. He probably has more experience using and training with the Isochain than almost anybody, so I thought it'd be helpful for this review if I reached out and got him to make a video about his thoughts. Here he is, Chrys Johnson.
What up, y'all? So first of all, thanks Hampton for shouting me out, man. The Isochain has totally been a game changer for not only myself, but also my clients for the entire year of 2021 so far. I started using it October 5th, 2020. As of right now, it's the end of August, and the gains have been absolutely wild. If I wasn't documenting it, man, I wouldn't even believe it. To see one of my clients go from being stuck at the mid 350s to over 500 pounds of his deadlift in just a couple months is just wild, yo. On top of that, so many other like stories, weight loss, cutting up just raw strength gains and stuff. My knees being fixed up, yo. I had mad problems with my knees, and it's just fixed, man, because I thought I had surgery. I thought surgery was going to be the only option for me, and just so many more things. So just, I mean, what a product, man. What a product.
So yeah, that was Chrys, great guy. Check out his channel, tell him Hampton sent you. And I bring him up because the Isochain, when I started making the review for this and I started thinking about what I was going to say, I realized it was a much more complicated product to understand and use in terms of using it effectively, much more so than the chirp wheel or the base bar we've talked about. There's like a whole science and theory that goes behind it. So there's probably going to be details and questions about the product that I can't cover in this relatively short video, whereas he's made lots and lots of videos on his channel. So if you have any questions, if you're interested in the product or isometrics at all, check out his YouTube channel, I'll link it down below. I should note that I think he's an affiliate for Dragon Door, the company that makes the Isochain. So he is sponsored by them, but I've known him for about a year now, and even right from the get-go, he was very enthusiastic about the product. So he was very excited about the product way before he was sponsored by them. And if you want more from me, you can see my original unboxing of the Isochain in a video I made several months ago. So once again, if you just want a summary, I like the Isochain. I like it. I think a lot of people can benefit from having one and regularly using it. I regularly use it myself. Now that said, I also don't want to conflate my fondness for the product with my enthusiasm for isometrics. The Isochain is a great device, but it's not the only way you can do isometric exercise. In fact, just like with isometrics, this type of bar and chain device is not anything new. They've been around for a while. Here's a picture of Bruce Lee using one. The principle is very simple. While there are different ways to use the device, most of them involve pushing or pulling on the bar as hard as you can and holding for time, usually a few seconds. The idea is that you can put more force through your body with isometrics than you can with weightlifting. Now, if that doesn't make sense, consider that you can always hold more weight than you can move, right? Just because you can hold a 100-pound dumbbell doesn't mean you can curl it for reps. In addition, try to imagine yourself deadlifting 5 pounds off the ground. Not 500 pounds, but 5 pounds. So if you were told to do this as quickly as you could probably do it very quickly. You could probably lift it up almost as fast as you could without the weight. Now, imagine you try to deadlift 1,000 pounds off the ground, deadlifting 1,000 pounds. Even if someone asked you to lift that as fast as you could, it'd probably be a lot slower than you could lift 5 pounds, right? If you can even lift it at all. We're all at different points in our fitness journey, and that's okay. So bar and chain devices use this modality, also sometimes called overcoming isometrics, of trying to move an immovable object with maximum force. So as we've learned from the force velocity curve and the example of trying to deadlift 5 pounds as compared to 1,000 pounds, we know that as we go heavier and heavier, we're going to slow down. And eventually we're going to slow down to a point where we stop. That's overcoming isometrics. It's a very simple concept, but so is fitness. Some studies that claim that isometrics are not effective at building muscle are referring to yielding isometrics, not overcoming ones. Yielding being something like a wall sit. You're not moving, but you're also not exerting against maximum force. So, it is an old concept, but the Dragon Door research team has made a few relatively small but key improvements to enhance the overall device. You see what I mean, that I kind of have to explain what this is so the review makes sense? Mostly adding a heavy-duty spring to activate something they call the loading reflex. And adding a digital scale with audio feedback so you can see how much you're lifting and how much stronger you're actually getting. When the scale hits a certain weight, it beeps once per second until the force falls below that weight. Now, before I got the Isochain, I actually built a similar device myself. I wanted to see how it felt before I invested in the product. I did make a tutorial showing how I built it, which I'll link here and below. And while the digital scale didn't seem like that big of a deal to me at the time, it actually turned out to be pretty important. Small changes here and there in my technique that I thought were making me stronger didn't actually have that much effect. And in my opinion, this is actually one of the main benefits of having something like this. If you've ever wondered if a certain grip position or a visualization was actually making you stronger, then you can test it immediately with this. So while not strictly necessary, it's surprisingly useful. The more interesting and critical part of the build is the spring. I actually swapped mine out for a custom one. It can hold up to 700 pounds compared to 1,000 pounds on the original. This one seems a little bit smoother for me. They're basically there to simulate a live load, so it feels like the actual weight. Essentially, as you're pushing and pulling on the Isochain, it's pushing and pulling back. Now the creators cite this as being an essential difference between the classic builds and their own. I know, we're inside, it's weird, right? The spring, according to them, induces the loading reflex and reduces the amount of cortical inhibition we have. So an example of this theory is that if we were to push on something like a wall, our nervous system would bottleneck our strength output because it doesn't feel any pushback. Now this makes a lot of sense to me, and I can feel the difference from when I remove the spring and when I leave it on. But the reason I say it kind of hesitantly is because I couldn't find any external research on loading reflex. This is the first time I'd heard of it, and I wanted to learn more, and I really couldn't find anything. At least under loading reflex online. It could be under a different name. But again, this is something that made intuitive sense to me. So if someone has more information or you know more about it, then feel free to comment it below. I'd be happy to take a look. And as for the numbers, I've tested this theory before in an old video. Here it is. And that's about it. That's the Isochain. Like I said before, it's a very simple product. The reason I detach it is because when it's attached to the chain, it makes a lot of noise clanging around. So something to consider. If you live with someone, the Isochain makes a lot of noise when you're using it. And on the dash here, you can kind of see mine's peeling off a little bit, but there's the on and off button. This converts pounds to kilograms back and forth. These two arrow keys can change the weight you want to set it to, and over here are the different modes you can use. You can change the length and height of the chain with a carabiner like this, and there's actually a swivel here, which is super useful because it prevents the chain from getting twisted. I'm gonna tie up my hair, it's getting annoying. It may be time to cut it and donate it again. Although I'd probably be bald if I cut off 12 inches now. Anyway, with this you can do many different types of barbell exercises. Like I said at the beginning, it's kind of an isometric barbell. So the book recommends the shoulder press, the bicep curl, and the deadlift in one of its main templates, but there are many different templates and they show all kinds of different exercises. Because of the research cited in the book, the main mode you'll use from the handle is going to be the timed mode, which helps you count to 6-second holds at near maximum intensity. It will be notable to some of you that as the Isochain is now, there's no easy way to do the bench press or the back squat. The book does recommend some alternatives like the chest press and the Zercher squat or the front squat, but those are two very common exercises obviously, so I felt like I had to bring it up. There's really a lot more I could cover, but like I said, I'm trying to keep this review somewhat short, and as much as I like the product, I'm also not trying to sell you the product either. That's actually a good point, because this is the first unsponsored review that I've done where I like the product and I've used it for several months before I decided to do a review on it. All the other products, I bought it specifically so I could do a review on it, but this one is something I've been using for a while. So I might be somewhat biased, I guess, because it's unsponsored, but I don't know if it's unbiased because I do like the company and the product before I ever made the review. Just let me know your thoughts so I can factor that in for future reviews, because I do want these to serve you as best as they can. And just so there are no surprises, my name is in the endorsement section of the book. I don't make any money from book sales, but I really like the book, so I wrote a recommendation for it. On the other hand, while I like this company, I like them a lot, I also love you all, so I have to mention the major downside of this product. And the major downside of this product, by far, is the price. At $499 at the time of filming, it's going to be the main reason most people don't get the Isochain. In fact, some people may want it. They may have watched this video and they want the Isochain, but it's just a little bit out of their reach financially right now. Now, why is it so expensive? Well, the company says it's because of the expensive electronics that go in the handle. They may have also priced it to compete with similar products like the X3 bar. So I think that's an interesting thing to bring up. I already like the company before they ever announced the Isochain, but I almost didn't get one because of the price. And at the time I didn't have that much money, but I saved up a little bit every week and eventually got one. I don't spend any money on a gym membership, so that was my justification. Now, if you want a cheaper option, you can build your own, like I did. The company also very recently offered the handle as a standalone option. They're pricing that at $199. Actually, at the time of filming, $149 because they're doing some kind of launch discount. But probably by the time you're watching this, unless you're watching this video as soon as I uploaded it, which, you know, high five, but it's probably $199 after, I think, this week or next week. You should check on the website. That's probably the option I would go with if I didn't have one. In fact, I might get one just so I can give one to a friend or something. And if you have any DIY skills, just basic DIY skills, then it can save you a lot of money. Honestly, for the $300 or so that you're saving, you might be able to hire a professional or a friend to build that small platform and buy a chain for you with the $300 that you're saving. So just consider that. So that's it. Once again, I really like the Isochain. That's why I'm recommending it. I think it can help a lot of people, and I've gotten stronger, faster, and more muscular with it. I didn't really have any joint pain in my legs and arms before using it, but other people who have claimed that it's benefited them. There's more information on isometrics and the Isochain that I can include. I probably will make several more videos about isometrics. There's like a whole book about it. But honestly, if you have any questions or debates about the research, your best bet is probably to contact their website or their customer service, and they can probably answer your question. Or you can comment them below. Again, I don't have any affiliation, so I won't be offended if you think something's wrong or you want to bring up a counter argument. In fact, I'd be happy to hear it. And if you want community feedback, there's a Facebook group they made for users of the Isochain. It might be only for customers of the Isochain, I'm not sure. Go ahead and check on that. But even if it is, there's other groups about isometrics, different forums, and you can ask, and there's probably people there that have used it and you can ask their opinion on it. The reason I'm mentioning that is because you can get different perspectives on it. You know, I'm a young male, but an older female that's using it might have a different experience using it. And certainly I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to convince you to buy it. I do like it, I do recommend it, but my job with these unsponsored reviews is just to let you know about products that I've seen or ones that are commonly advertised and try to give you an honest, unbiased review on them. And if nothing else, I really do recommend getting the book. It was full of interesting information. I learned a lot about it, and there's a bunch of exercises and concepts that you can use without the Isochain. So it's not just for the Isochain. All right, is that it? This took a while to make. This took a while to make because I actually had to sit down and think about all the stuff I had to talk about prior to making the video. And I don't know if any of you saw the stories about this, but I actually had to script this video. Almost all my videos are unscripted, but I scripted this video partially because there's so many different things I wanted to cover, and also because it's been really hot here in northern Arkansas. I think the other day it was like 100 degrees, and I like going off script. I like just talking and thinking because it seems more genuine that way. You can get my actual thoughts that way. But they often take a little bit longer because of that, and it's been so hot that my camera will overheat. So I started writing some scripts for some videos just so I can get filming done as soon as possible. But I wanted to cover a lot of stuff about the Isochain. I want to get all the details, answer as many questions as possible, so I hope you liked it. Like, I had to explain what the Isochain was, the concept of isometrics, and then review them. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate that. Please let me know what you think of the Isochain. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Are you going to get one? Do you think it's too expensive? And if so, what do you think is a fair price for it? So let me know those things, any questions, comments, or different points of view in the comments. I love reading them. And also let me know what other products you'd like for me to review. If you have anything that you see and you're like, I wonder how that works, I will consider buying it if it's not too expensive, and I'll review it for free. I love you all. I am cheering for your success. Have a wonderful, beautiful day, my friend.